These are my rollerblades. I want you to know I was one of the first in St. Louis to have a pair of these. They weren't even sold really anywhere else yet, except just in a few places in Minneapolis. When I would be rollerblading in Forest Park, people would pull their cars alongside the trail to see what I was doing and what this was all about. It wasn't long before rollerblading became the rage. I never got all the way great at it, I have to say, but I did do it often. Rollerblading the park and the trails around town was so much fun. And I made sure I rollerbladed up the big hills and not down them, except for once. I took my rollerblades with me to Colorado, and I was staying at Copper Mountain, where Highway 70 West takes a sharp turn towards Vail. There's a nice, long, several-mile-long asphalt trail downhill, or should I say down mountain, through the pass there alongside of the 10-mile range. From Copper Mountain, the trail went all the way down to Frisco. It did not look too steep from the highway, so I thought it would be fine and fun to ride so far just coasting. Though I admit to some fear as I laced my rollerblades at the base of Copper Mountain. Because it was a hot day, I was only wearing gym shorts and white socks and those rollerblades. It did not occur to me that if I were to fall, there was not a lot between my skin and that asphalt trail. And so I took a deep breath, I pushed back my helmet, I adjusted my wrist guards, and I pushed off. Within seconds, I knew I had made the biggest mistake of my rollerblading career. What seemed like such a benign slope at the top turned out to be much steeper than I had anticipated, and those dips along the way and the rocks strewn across the trail, my wheels were spinning so fast as I went, and there was no way to get it back under control because the further down I went, the faster the wheels were going. It wasn't long before I knew I was out of my league, speeding faster and faster, my feet chattering and twisting along the way. There was a whole lot of shaking going on down there. I was terrified, realizing what a stupid, horrible mistake I had made. What was I going to do now? And then in a split second, one word popped into my head. Looking back now, I really believe it was the voice of divine intervention. And that voice said just one word: fall. Gary, fall. That's easier said than done. I realized quickly what I had to do. I had to fall off the blades now or face a much worse fate further down the road. But when? When do you decide to just fall when you know it's going to hurt like hell? Do you do it right now? Do you wait a minute and see if the trail's a little smoother and there's nicer stuff along the side that might cushion the blow? But I didn't have the luxury of waiting any longer. I had to decide quickly. So I leaned to the left, and the blades caught a rock, and down I went, butt first, into the dirt, and slid like a skier on a mountainside. Ouch. I don't think that's the word I said, but when I got my wits together about me, though I think I was still in shock, I looked down at the sides of my legs. They were red with blood and embedded with pebbles. My elbows, too, were bloody. Huge chunks of skin had been scraped off, but nothing was broken. I was able to shakily stand up and slowly, painfully, make my way back down that mountain pass to where my friends were staying in Frisco that night. And on that trip, I was traveling with 3 other priests. I learned that priests do not become doctors for a reason. And I learned that they aren't the most compassionate when it comes to getting hurt doing something most teenagers would not do. That pass up there taught me two really important lessons in my life. First, that just because you think you can pull off something really awesome and also very risky doesn't mean that you should actually do it. Your perspective might be clouded by delusions of immature, unrealistic thinking and not a small amount of hubris. And second, when things are careening down a hill at out-of-control speeds, the best thing to do is fall. My friends, tonight I submit to you that so much going on in our society today can be compared to that immature, unrealistic thinking, Gary Brown. We really thought we could pull this off, didn't we? Like I did, we stood at the top of the hill looking down on a world we felt confident we could conquer. Poised on the wheels of progress, we were full of hubris and not a small amount of ignorance of the consequence of our choices. The difference, of course, is that it was not just me on rollerblades this time. It's been our entire Western society in several crucial ways, careening towards its own destruction. I speak tonight of an ecological crucifixion and the crucifixion of women. Today is Earth Day. The Earth is in trouble. Every reputable scientist, and I mean reputable, agrees with that. Our Holy Father, Pope Francis, is telling us that we have to take the fall. There are a lot of immediate choices we have to make that will hurt to stop this careening of a society towards the destruction of our planet. Yes, we have to take the fall. We may have to get hurt in the short term, suffer things in the short term, so that our children and our children's children and the generations after them will be safe. We might have to pay more taxes to fix this. We might have to lose jobs and even industries that are hurting this good earth more than helping. Yes, it will bruise us to stop living beyond the earth's means. We might have to get more informed, you and I, and realize that it's time we build this issue into our voting now. Our Holy Father, Pope Francis, has made caring for the earth and its future an imperative of our faith. So did the two popes before him, Pope Benedict and Pope St. John Paul II. So did they. Francis has been blunt. Fall. Fall now. Suck it up. Let's do this before it's too late. Just because we think we can pull something off that's really awesome but really risky doesn't mean we should actually do it. We're careening down a bumpy hill, a mountain slope, and we're on a collision course with possible global disaster. That's right. Celebrate Earth Day today by mustering the courage to fall. But there's one other area that is also an imperative of our faith, that we see what is happening, that we let ourselves see what is happening, as unpleasant as it is. An issue that's on the table this week at Washington University and a lot of schools around the country. The so-called sexual revolution, unleashed, many would say, in the 60s when I was in high school and early college. In the name of freedom, that sexual revolution led to the extremes that we see right now in the human family and even in your generation, careening between the extremes of being seriously repressed and having unbridled license. The sexual revolution has led to this careening between repression and license, and we have yet to find our way. There's no middle ground, it seems, anymore, and it has left many, way too many victims in its wake. Many young women on our campus, and more men, have witnessed this careening of our society down this path, a path of destruction. The path is strewn with victims and bystanders. When a victim of abuse decides to fall, instead of continuing on with society's destruction and their own, he or she, in the moment they decide to fall and do a very hard thing, I have to say with all my mind, heart, soul, and body, they are about the most courageous voice I have ever witnessed in my life. Hashtag Me Too has made that so clear. Some will suffer mightily for coming out with this truth, this secret. When women come forward to share their story, men too, far too often they're not taken seriously, they are dismissed, and excuses are made for what has happened. Too many of us turn the other way. Many of us, the rest of us, perhaps, are bystanders to all this and are frustrated by the complicity and silence of so many. The complicity and silence, for example, of sports teams, our fraternities, our ROTC, our this whole male culture. It seems that no one knows how to raise their voice and do anything more than be silent out of fear of any number of possible consequences that could hurt. The voices of the victim deserve to be heard and honored. Their suffering is needed if we're ever going to get the society back on the right track and slow down this catapulting to destruction. Their suffering has become the cornerstone that the second reading just talked about, the cornerstone rejected by society that has become the centerpiece of the new structure of a new world. Their suffering is. And we must stand with the victim. We must. And stop the victimizing, even of victims. Like that image of me choosing to fall now rather than things getting worse. That feeling of out of control rush and terror, that's what it feels like when we're about to speak up, if we're about to challenge our peers' unhealthy words and behaviors that are directly or indirectly contributing to a culture that breeds sexual assault. At a lunch table, we have to speak up. At a party or in the locker room, that courageously speaking up, whether of the victims themselves or by the bystander, it's terrifying. Not knowing what the consequences will be, the first one to stick your neck out there and be a dissenting voice in a group, challenging what is going on around you in that moment. That's terrifying to do. This week at WashU, students from all across campus are gathering to stop the victimizing of women on this campus, and men too. The numbers are shocking. And the CSC this week is joining many across campus to be available throughout the day on Thursday to listen to people's stories. Too many are hurting to ignore this any longer. What the community does best is shepherding. It gives them a safe place. The healing of persons and the healing of our society really can begin when community happens. The CSC can be that safe place. I know that, as I have seen many victims of sexual abuse come here to tell their story. We, together as a community, can empower victims to share, if that should be their choice. Encourage bystanders to speak up. Advocate change in male culture in general. And I could go on and on. Can you hear the voice calling to us as we are now realizing that the machine is going too fast and we are out of control? Can you hear the word that is fall? Fall. Make the choice to fall off those rollerblades. Fall now so that we can avoid the worst case scenarios. Yes, it will hurt. It will hurt to come out of hiding. It will hurt to be allies to those who are coming out of hiding. To not remain on the sidelines any longer. It's going to hurt. Yes, our elbows would get injured by relinquishing our attitudes of personal and gender privilege. Yes, our knees would get scraped up and bloodied by speaking up. But this short-term hit will save us from long-term destruction. And I can't thank those who have expressed in words their awful experience of being a victim for what they are calling all of us to and helping all of us feel less alone in the process. Now. Sad to say, very sad to say, there are many ways the society of ours is careening towards disaster. But today, with Earth Day today, and the march on this campus on Thursday, this ecological crucifixion, this crucifixion of women who have been victims, are just two of them on the table for us this week. Sometimes I've learned, as scary as it is, we just have to decide to fall, to take the hit on purpose.